We've got a really interesting guest coming up on the show shortly. We're going to look at the importance of play dates, you know, how important they are. I think many people with sort of children will probably vouch it's good for children to get, you know, the social skills, get out there and sort of play, especially in the digital age that we live in these days. It's easy for them to just sort of like, you know, but that's another topic for another day. So, Dr. Mahat, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board. Can you give us the rundown what the research tells us, please?
Yeah, so BBC Studios did this really lovely piece of research with 1,000 parents, aligning with Playdates with Friends, which is the theme of Bluey for this year. And they looked at what parents think about Playdates, and they got some really lovely data that, for example, 6 in 10 parents believe that Playdates help their children to feel confident. And I would agree, as a clinical psychologist, there's tons of research about the confidence that children build when they're playing with their friends and they're playing with peers, same age or slightly different age peers, it doesn't really matter, but they build confidence in their social skills. And they also found out that 43% that seeing children having fun is like the best bit about Playdates. And as a mum, I totally relate to that. I really relate to seeing your kid enjoying playing with other children. Gives you like a little bit of wonder that's really different from when you just see them playing at home on their own. And also what I would add to that is that actually playing with friends like this, these little play dates, they really build essential skills for the classroom. Things like practicing turn taking, empathy, patience, communication skills, being able to move through feelings like frustration and disappointment. All of that stuff happens on a play date, and it allows kids to practice before they have to do it in a classroom environment.
Yeah, that makes sense, Doctor. I mean, for people listening, I suppose sort of when I sort of reflect back to my sort of childhood, it was more like you'd sort of hang out with a group of friends and maybe go to the park or whatever, you know, kick a ball around and whatever, play sport all day, or just, you know, ride on bike and that sort of stuff. Really, yeah, I suppose it was sort of like it kind of had a big impact, I think, in terms of sort of building sort of confidence and that sort of stuff. But where does the sort of concept of organising this sort of come up, really? Because if I sort of reflect back in the day, I don't want to go on with myself. Back in the day, it was more like, you know what, over the summer break, you kind of would just knock on the door and your mates would come out and you'd be sort of on the bike and getting up to whatever type thing. And what sort of changed over the years, Doctor?
I love this question because I have the same feeling. I wouldn't say I would just knock on people's door, probably because of where I lived, right? But I think I saw my friends a little bit more. We did lots of outdoor play. And I would say what you did, what I did, the things you just talked about are perfect. That's the kind of play date that would work really well. Obviously, if your child is somewhere between 3 and 6, which is what we focus on, little ones, they're not knocking on each other's doors, so they need an adult to kind of arrange it and sort it out. I think one of the things that we're really aware of is that screens, let's be honest, have taken some of the playtime with friends away from kids. And I think as a parent in a really busy work life, juggling parenting, it can feel like an extra chore to set up a play date. And we know that one of the boundaries for parents is worrying about knowing other parents. It's things like clashing schedules. It's things like feeling really awkward to set something up or invite people in their home when it's not kind of social media photo ready. And the thing I really want to help parents realize and feel reassured about is that exactly what you just said, taking kids to the park, kicking a ball around, just playing with whatever is around them is perfect. That's a perfect play date. Introduce snacks, and the research tells us that about 46% of kids are like, that's the best play date ever, because food always brings kids together. So remember to be the parent with all the good snacks, and you're ticking all the boxes. But genuinely, the thing that's changed in this modern world is screen time. And so I think as parents, it's really lovely to remember that just having a picnic in the park or inviting a couple of kids round for an afternoon in your messy, uncleaned house, completely normal. It's also reassuring for other parents, like, oh, your house looks a bit like mine, so I must be doing something right. Doesn't look like social media, doesn't look perfect. And kids don't need that perfectness. Like free play with friends is where all those good things are being built.
Yeah, and absolutely. And yeah, no, I think there's some sort of really important points you've made there, Doctor. And I certainly think that, yeah, I mean, when I sort of think back, not that I would advocate anyone knocking on anyone's door type thing, but I suppose with us, like growing up, it was kind of a given. You had your next door neighbour or someone who lived down the road, and you'd just go down and sort of knock on, and you'd be out there. But I suppose there is this sort of screen time, but there's also, I suppose, it might be anecdotal, it might be just sort of like whatever, but the world seems a different place, Doctor, than it used to be. You know, it just seems to me, maybe it's the perception we get from the media, whatever, but I suppose I'm sure there'll be the degree of anxiety. As a parent, I think that if you don't have some sort of control and boundaries around organising a meet-up, there's maybe that bit of anxiety in terms of, you know, who they're associating with type thing, and obviously this, you know, the world's a changed place. You could argue that might be just anecdotal, just down to what we see in the media, but certainly growing up for me, there probably wasn't the same concerns that there is now, if that makes any sense. Now, it's gone off track a little bit, but I think there is that little bit of anxiety, I think, of sort of knowing that the child is in a safe environment, Doctor, you know?
I agree with you. I think that anxiety is real. I think the reason, I mean, this may be controversial, but the reason why maybe parents, when you and I were growing up, were less anxious was we were less aware. You know, the things that happen now are happening now. We just didn't talk about it. They just happen behind closed doors, right? And I think we are more aware as adults. What I would say about play dates with friends, especially with little ones, is that I would, as a clinical psychologist, really, really encourage that parents are part of the play date, okay? So you need to be around, because the play date is not just for your kids, it's really good for you as parents. We know that rates of loneliness are increasing in parenting, and when we have play dates with friends, parents also get this incredible opportunity of joining in with other parents, of feeling validated in their parenting, witnessing how their child plays with other kids and being able to go, oh, that's normal, that's natural. You know, the thing I was worried about maybe isn't really a worry. To be able to like build skills, because you see the other things that maybe parents do or the snacks they offer, and it gives you ideas. So all those things are really, really great. It's building a real community in real life rather than online, and it's so much more healthy and useful for us as adults as well. And you know, between the ages of 3 and 6, I would say play is so natural. Like, kids just do it instinctively. You just have to offer a safe environment and opportunity for play, and kids will just go. Like, they just know what they're doing. And if you've ever watched Bluey, it's very much what the show is all about, right? Like playing with friends and playfulness every day. It just happens on the show. So, you know, I talked about screens, but I do think they can be meaningful tools to open up conversations, to help you as a parent. So sit down, watch a little bit of Bluey, and really like notice what playing with friends looks like, and help your kid think about that too. Because if you've never done this, I think part of the anxiety for parents is, I'm not sure how to host a play date or what to do. Watching something like Bluey can really help kind of give you some like ideas and help you and your kid think, what would feel nice, what would you like to do? And if you're somewhere where, you know, the sun is shining, like in the UK at the moment, such a lovely opportunity to just go into the park with a bunch of snacks, maybe a ball like you suggested, and just let your kids run around, play. They'll find sticks, they'll find rocks, they'll, you know, climb a tree. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've made a really good point there too, Doctor, where sometimes it can be, you know, like around the sort of the fear and the anxiety. I know that's another topic for another day, but, you know, things did happen back then, that's for sure. I suppose the other thing too I would say would be, when I sort of reflect back to it's quite a reflective conversation we're having here. We were pretty streetwise kids, to be fair, as well. Like, you know, we were tough, you know, kids growing up, to be honest. So I don't know. I know it's easy to sort of like, each generation's different, but I would say for me, certainly growing up, do you think sort of, I know I was going off track a little bit, but do you reckon sort of like maybe, I mean 3 to 6 obviously sort of, that age group's obviously relatively young, but I'm thinking a little bit older than that. We were quite streetwise growing up, Doctor, in terms of sort of like, we'd go to the park and play, sport, whatever else, but we were kind of, I suppose I'm not sure if it's the appropriate word, but we were pretty tough kids, so to speak, in terms of anything. We kind of had each other's backs type thing.
Yeah.
But,
what's your question?
No. Do you think it's changed? Do you think maybe the kids these days aren't as streetwise as they used to be, type thing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I do think. Between 3 and 6, I would say kids are not streetwise, and that's okay.
No, I'm not thinking that. No, I'm not thinking that age group, but I'm thinking maybe older than that.
About kids. I think what you said there is really important, actually. That this idea of like kids having each other's backs. Again, I would very much encourage parents between now and September, particularly if your child is starting school, to set regular play dates with friends. Go to the park, go outdoors, maybe inside. Just more time with other kids, particularly if they're going to a similar school, but it doesn't really matter. But if they are, just what you said is really important, because kids will build, relationships with each other, and then they will have each other's backs in the classroom and in the playground. So just having a little reference point, like when you have a kid who starts school, it can be really, really scary. You don't know anyone, unfamiliar setting with unfamiliar adults, you haven't built relationships, and then you spot that one kid that you had a play date with in the park over the summer, and suddenly you just feel more comfortable. It gives you that sense of safety, right? You're like, I know that kid, I'm all right. So it really does help kids kind of build those skills. And when you talk about being streetwise, I think if you're playing outdoors over time with kids, like they will develop more of those skills. I don't think it's about toughening them up, but I think it is about building their competence and confidence in social situations and with their bodies, being really confident about being able to do things and trying things out without fear, making mistakes and failing and carrying on. I think play dates offer kids that beautiful opportunity because they will see other children do things that they can't necessarily do. An example of that is things like a balance bike. So my daughter is very physical, and she got on a balance bike, she just went. And when we had a play date with a friend, the little boy was really quite scared of the balance bike, and he wasn't even trying it out. And when he saw my daughter show up on a balance bike, he kind of started to try it. And, his mum was like, oh my goodness, that was so helpful. Just seeing your daughter do that has made him want to try it. He hasn't wanted to do it. And, that's the kind of really powerful thing that can happen on a little play date. The kids watch each other, and then they try things out, because it's more powerful to see a kid doing something than a parent saying, try it, it's fun. If they see a child having fun, then they're going to want to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know sort of I took the conversation off track a little bit and sort of was referring to sort of older children, but the opportunity to sort of speak to yourself, obviously, sort of like, who's got a lot of knowledge in this area is always a good thing, I think. But sort of bringing it back to sort of like the age group that sort of the research looked at, the 3 to 6. I suppose my question is, and I'm aware of time, is that at that age group, Doctor, do you think like it is really important to sort of develop those social skills? For me, if a child from maybe the age of say 3 to 6 doesn't associate with other children, it's going to have a big implication, or possibly a big implication in life moving forward, where that they might miss out on those basic social skills of how to interact with their peers.
I think I'm going to make this nuance because the nuance is important, I think. But we know that kids mixing with other children through regular play dates with friends, just like, this BBC Studios research has shown, can really give children the chance to practice skills that they don't really get to practice in the same way when they don't mix with other children. So skills like problem solving, communication, like negotiation, conflict resolution. And those things translate into the classroom environment. What I will say is that obviously some children, if they are neurodivergent, might really struggle in big social situations. So when I think about play dates with friends, and I think of them as these like mini life skills workshops, they are just as powerful with 2 friends as they are with 5. So if your child is struggling, because these social skills are like the foundation of children being able to relate to others in the classroom, build friendships in the playground, in a classroom environment, school environment, it's really helpful. But I think if you know as a parent that your child struggles with lots of children, because children are more unpredictable than adults, and kids who are neurodivergent might feel anxious around that, just set a play date with 1 friend, and that is enough. Like that has been shown to offer kids the opportunity to build these skills, because at the end of the day, it's about helping kids feel safe, comfortable, and confident in the classroom. And if play dates can offer kids that, like just being able to sit there and feel like I'm safe, I can learn here, then you're doing a great thing.
Yeah, that's some really good points there. I know that our sort of listeners have found that really interesting and informative. I suppose the other thing too, Doctor, would be if the parents get a bit overly competitive, if, you start playing some sport, you have to reel it in. It's just a reminder but yeah, I'm certainly not in the business of letting, certainly with my children, I'd never give them the opportunity to a free win at sports, Doctor. If they beat me in a sport, then you earn it, and that's the end of that.
You know what? I'm not anti that at all. I mean, one of the things I always talk about is competitive sports, even like board games. Great structured kind of play. And I would always say, if there's an adult playing, like you're suggesting, the adults are playing too, I think it's really helpful, because it's one of the ways that you can really build emotional regulation in children. It's a way to use play to develop tools so children move through like big emotions, whether it's losing or disappointment or even winning. And I think as an adult, though, the tricky thing, the challenge I set you and anybody else who's competitive at sports like that and games, is that you need to be able to role model to your kid what a good loser and a good winner looks like, because they learn more from that than from anything else, right? Yeah. And to lose feels so painful to children. Of course it does. And some children are more competitive than others. But as an adult, it's great to like role model what good losing looks like. And again, when you do play date with friends, kids will be able to watch other kids like lose and like have a massive meltdown, or lose and be like, oh, that's okay. Can we try again? I want to have another go. And you can then use that as an opportunity to talk to your child outside of the play date and like build skills. You can ask them like curious questions, like, when Freddie lost and he had a massive meltdown, well, how did that feel? Did it make you want to play with him again? And, when Jonah lost and he just said, can we do it again? Because I want to have another go. How did that feel? And what kind of, if you'd been on the losing team, how would you have preferred to act? Those things will help children build better relationships in a classroom kind of school environment, because these are the skills that make other kids want to be with your child, right? The ability to move through big emotions, the ability to be a good loser or a good winner who's not like, yay, I won, you lost, but just goes, oh my God, we won, woohoo, that was so much fun. Should we try again? Maybe you win next time. When kids are able to do that, other kids will be like, you're the kind of kid I want to be a friend with. Yeah. And those skills are built in playing together like this.
No, absolutely, no, for sure. So definitely, absolutely. I think that's some really great takeaways. To be fair, so it's probably not a good idea to say, to the child, we can't lose to those parents. I'm not going to get beat. I'm not going to get beat. It's a win at all cost. We'll have to, even if we sort of like have to sort of break the rules, whatever. But yeah, I think that's it really, and like you've mentioned there, I think it's really useful, because it is like a potential a family thing. You can see the benefit for interaction socially for the children, but also for the parents too, to sort of get out there and. 100% for sure. If people want to find out more information, Doctor, where can they go to find out more info on your work or more information around the study? I'll check it out myself, to be fair. I think it seems quite an interesting study. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. If you want some inspiration on play dates with friends, based on the annual theme of Bluey, you can go to bluey.tv, and there's also loads more information there.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's I think it's quite interesting, really. And I have to admit, sort of, I'm all for it. With my children, I've always sort of made a point of getting them out there, even if it's sort of like structured classes, which probably don't sort of quantify in the playdate scenario, but sort of getting them out there, extracurricular activities, be it boxing, football, whatever else, just being around other people their own age.
Absolutely,
can be,
and just remember, free play. Like let your kid just hang out with a couple of toys, or even just in nature. Like you don't have to. Kids will find their play. Like
absolutely,
it's so important to just recognize a few. Like my daughters love just playing with sticks in the woods. Like there's nothing there, but they'll find something to play with, and it sparks their imagination and their curiosity, and all those things are so important when we then put them in a learning environment.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Doctor. It's really interesting and informative. Have a great day and a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye.
We've got a really interesting guest coming up on the show shortly. We're going to look at the importance of play dates, how important they are. I think many people with sort of children will probably